Because it's my first time here, I would like to do a newbie tag just so you guys can get to know me. So if you see me looking down, it's because I have my iPad and I'm reading the questions from the iPad. Also, you're gonna see my cat. No! Oh my god. I'm sorry, guys. My cat was being a freaking menace. Like I said, I wanted to do a newbie tag just because I want you guys to know me and I'm gonna answer a few questions. So let's begin. The first question is, why did I start a YouTube, or why am I starting this channel? And a couple of things, right? So number one, I grew up in the YouTube era. I grew up in the YouTube like start, right? Where YouTube was just people were putting things up on YouTube and it was like crazy. No censorship at all. That's when I started YouTube and I actually started posting videos of me rapping Nicki Minaj. I was a big Barb before Barb was a thing. I was rapping Nicki. I was like posting videos. I was posting my little cousins on there. I just really loved YouTube and I loved the community of it. I just wanted to be like in it. I don't know. I wanted to feel included. One thing about me that you'll know is I have major FOMO. I love to know what's going on. I'm nosy. I'm a Latina. I'm a chismosa. Like, I need to know what's going on. Also, my cat's like that. We're both nosy. But yeah, so I love YouTube. I love the idea of YouTube. I love the idea of having a community, right? I love the idea of like talking into a camera and having other people on other sides of the world knowing me and talking to me. Like, I just love that. And why did I start a YouTube channel directly based off of books? I love talking. Like, I love talking about books. I love talking to my friends about books, right? But sometimes my friends may not know the lore, right? So I don't know how to explain certain things without them knowing, you know? So because of that, I was like, where can I go to talk about books with people who also know about books and know about the lore and know about the community, you know? YouTube. And so I got into the book talk community and I got into like Bookstagram and Booktube, but mainly Booktube. I was really focused on Booktube. And that's when I started being introduced to certain like booktubers, for example, like Haley Pham, Maya Beatrice, Angel, Shima, I think, and Kalila. And so because of those booktubers, I was like, you know what? I want to join the community. Remember when I said I have FOMO? I wanted to join the community. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this. But at the beginning, it was all talk. It was all talk. When I'm telling you, this has been in the works since like October of last year or like September of last year. Like, and now is that I'm actually recording and doing things. Yeah, I'm that girl. And lastly, I also wanted to just do a hobby. Like, I teach sex ed to middle school and high school. And I don't have enough time to really do a hobby that takes up too much time. Before, I was working far away from where I live now. I live in Brooklyn and I was working in like Queens. And so it was taking up a long time of commuting. So I was taking 2 hours to get to work and 2 hours to come back, that by the time I got home, I didn't really want to do anything. So reading was actually something that I could do often because on my 2 hour ride, I can read Girls Like Us by Randy Pink and I could literally just like finish the book on my way. So I was doing that a lot. So I was like, okay, this is something that I like. But yeah, so that's ultimately why I wanted to start this channel. I love YouTube. I love books. I love talking about books. I love talking. And I wanted to find a community and I just wanted to do like a hobby, something that makes me feel nice. Okay, on to the next question. The next question is, why do I love reading? And ultimately, it's just fun. I actually learn a lot through reading. And when I was younger, I wasn't a big like reading fan, and I'll go into that more later. Because of that, I never fully immersed myself into reading. I didn't really pay attention or fully grasp what I was reading. And now that I'm older, I get to really just like get into it, learn new words, learn new places, and just like it's just fun. Like I don't know, it's just fun. And I love visiting new places. And what I mean by that is like kind of like escapism. But for example, when I was reading The Glass Casket by McCormick, I forgot who is the author of that book. I remember reading that book and it was a fantasy book. And I was just like, I need to go back. Like, I need to go back to that place. Like, no one knows where that place is except for me. Like, and when I was reading on the train, it was just like my own little like world. And it was just so fun to do that. Again, like I said, it's just fun. And so yeah, so it was just it's really nice to visit new places and learn new places as well. Like sometimes I'll be reading from places like London. Some of them are made up, some of them are real, and I'll search them up and I'll be like, "Oh my, like that's a real place. Like I want to go there. I want to do that." You know? So that's why I love reading. And let's go on to the next question. The next question is, when did I start reading and how did I get into reading? So I started reading in middle school, and at the time I had read two books. These two books were the books that really got me into reading. So the first one was Swallowing Stones, and the second one was The Outsiders. And I actually have both of these books, and I will show you guys those books later when I do my physical TBR. And those two books were the books that I was immersed with. Like, those were the books that started my reading. After I started reading, right, I couldn't, I was a people pleaser. I'm just gonna put it out there. And nobody was reading. The people who were reading, I wasn't, they weren't cool in my head. I was that girl. I was that girl. It's so humbling and embarrassing right now to say it, but I'm not mad at that girl, you know? Like, I needed to go through that in order to be the girl that I am now, to truly find myself, you know? At the time, I wasn't feeling like reading was cool, and the people that I was hanging out with didn't feel like reading was cool. Other things were cool. And so I decided to do those things instead of the thing I wanted to do. I also felt like I wasn't smart enough to be reading. Like I wasn't that type of person. And so because I wasn't that type of person, I shouldn't be reading. Even now that I'm reading, like I speak to my best friend all the time. I'm always like, "Do I look like the type of person to be reading?" And she was like, "No." And it's because of my personality, it's like where I'm from and like the way that I am. And so every time I think about that, like it always reminds me like maybe I have imposter syndrome whenever I read, or like I'm in the booktube community, and I have to always reassure myself like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like this is the community I am meant to be. I love reading, I love books, I love my community, so I'm just gonna do it, you know. So yeah, so that is when I started reading. And then how did I get into reading? I used to work at a community center, and at the community center people donate books all the time. And so there was these three books in particular that they had on the shelf, and it was The Glass Casket by McCormick Templeman, I think that's what it is, but McCormick. The second book was The Fault Line by C Desert. I'm also going to show you guys this book, except for The Glass Casket. I don't have that book with me. And Girls Like Us by Randy Pink. And when I got those two books, The Glass Casket and The Fault Line, I started reading them on the train because my train ride was 2 hours. And I was invested, like super duper invested. I was like, you know what? I have to, like, I want to keep this going. Like, I just learned about a new place and I learned about a new thing, and it was just fun. I also learned a lot about myself through reading. For example, the Glass Casket is a fantasy book. And that fantasy book, I felt like I was visiting new places. And I felt like it was my own little corner in the world because I only knew about this place. And then The Fault Line was a YA book. It was kind of like drama. It was a lot of trigger warnings and things that I would have never read before because I was either getting triggered or I didn't want to like put myself in that situation. But reading that book actually made me kind of just do it. I just wanted to like do it. So that's how I started reading. And that's where my journey actually began with the reading. The next question, and the last question actually, is my favorite book genres. And I'll tell you some of my favorite books from each of the genres. The first book genre that I liked and that I actually began with was romance. Romance was a big book genre that I was like obsessed with. I'm now romanced out, but I also think that it's because we're like in winter. And so because we're in winter, I'm a big romance person when it comes to the summer. Like I feel like romance deserves to be in summer. Even if it's a Christmas romance or like a winter or a fall romance, I feel like it should be in the summer. I don't know why. Love to me is equals summer and hot and nice. So my first romance book that I got into that I was obsessed with was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Loved it. I loved it. It was great. It was amazing. Um, I would reread it again. The second genre that I got into was fantasy. And fantasy, it was The Glass Casket. I know I'm talking about The Glass Casket and The Vault Line so much, but it was just my beginning. So The Glass Casket was actually my fantasy book that I was obsessed with. Like I was recommending it to multiple people. Like I was like, read this book, read this book, read this book. And I would come home, tell my best friend about it, like, oh my god, there's a book that I'm reading, blah 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 blah. Like I was obsessed with it. And I'm gonna reread it actually soon. But I gave the book to my sister-in-law and she has it in Philly. So I don't know how soon that will be. But I do want to read that book again. It was so good. And then I got into YA. And for YA, it was The Fault Line. The Fault Line was a really good book. And I just like got into it. And then I honestly, what I really liked about YA books is that since I just had started getting into reading, the words were actually bigger and the spacing was bigger. So I couldn't really get into those books that are like really tiny and like the little lines. Like I couldn't get into those books, but I could get into the ones that had the bigger lines, like the bigger spacing and the bigger words, and it was just easier to read. So that's why I really liked YA books. Then I got into historical fiction, and with historical fiction it was Girls Like Us by Randy Pink. And little Johanny could have never said, oh, you're gonna get into historical fiction, or I couldn't tell my little Johanny, like, you're into historical fiction. Never. But I love historical fiction. That is like my favorite genre right now. Like, love it, love it, love it. I'm obsessed. And I guess it's because I love the learning factor of it. I'm not in school right now. I haven't been in school in a while. I really do want to go back to get my master's, but with this economy. So I would much rather read from my books and learn from my books, especially with all the books that are being banned. I have a list of books that I need to get that I need to read. So the next one is literary fiction. This is also a new genre that I just got obsessed with too. And I guess it's because I got into the transition from historical fiction to literary fiction. And the book that I'm obsessed with literary fiction is, well, I got into Tell Me Lies. That was more like drama than it was like literary fiction, but it is considered literary fiction. Well, right now I am reading Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, and that one is kind of like sci-fi, but not really literary fiction, kind of. So I guess I can add that one as one of the books. That one that one is kind of interesting. But I'm getting into literary fiction, which I kind of like too. I feel like I'm stemming away from just being romance, which is not bad, but I felt like I was like heavily into romance. Like, let me see. The romance books that I read are Call It What You Want, the Tia Williams book. I got a few from the library. Love Square. There was another few books that I got from the library. that it was just romance. It was literally back to back to back to back romance. I literally romanced myself out. So then I got all these books and I was like, I cannot read this right now. Like, I'm literally not, I can't. Like, I have no want. And I'm a mood reader. Like, I don't want to read something that I'm not interested in to read right now. Because I feel like I'm just going to read it to finish it, and I don't want to do that. And the two genres that I would like to get into more is thriller and fantasy more, because I did like fantasy with the glass casket, but honestly I think that was like the only one that I was really like obsessed with. And if I look at my fantasy books, there's not much that I read from fantasy, but I have a bunch of books that are in my TBR, so I could just start. That was my newbie tag. We're going to talk about my physical TBR in a little bit. But I hope that you guys know me now a little bit more. Just a couple of things that are just like facts about me. My name is Johanny. I am 25 years old. I am Dominican.
I'm not Mexican, bitch. I'm Dominican. Bitch, I'm Dominican.
I was born and raised in New York City. And so, yeah, I used to live in Washington Heights and now I live in Brooklyn. I've lived in Brooklyn now for like 3 or 4 years now. And I am a sex ed teacher. I am very obsessed with books that have to do with healthy bodies, sex positivity, uh, just sex in general, whether it's like a toxic or unhealthy, healthy, just having a relationship with sex. And I'm obsessed with that. I love learning and teaching people about your sexual experience, whether you're having a sexual experience, whether you're not having a sexual experience. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And we'll get into my physical TBR. Also, you're going to see that I'm wearing different clothes because I recorded these things separately because I'm also a procrastinator. Okay. Bye, guys. All right. Go to my physical TBR. Bye. Bye.
2 weeks later.
I'm not going to crash out. I'm simply not going to crash out. I just recorded a 2-minute video and there was no sound. So we're going to try this again. Okay. Number one, updates. Okay. You all have not seen me in a while, and that is my fault. I'm going to take the blame. Blame me. Send me to jail. It was me. And it's fine. Your girl is back. Your girl is back and she's better. She's back. Number one, I got a mic. Who's going to stop me? Who's going to stop me? Not you. Another update is I got new books.
Oh my god.
Now I know I shouldn't have gone overboard, right? But the last time we were here, we were doing a physical TBR, and I had probably around like 70 books, maybe. I have 93 books now, and that's okay. That's fine. Also, another thing, there is going to be a lot of shadows happening, and it's because I have a makeshift lighting behind me. So just in case you see some shadows, it's okay. We're gonna move along. Why don't we get into my physical TBR? So let's start off with my Kindle. She is the Gen 11 6-inch screen Kindle, and she is the Matcha Kindle. She's cute. Love her. These are my stickers. She looks like this. Right now, I'm reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue on it, and I'm probably like 13%, I want to say, or 16%, almost done with it. I'm very excited. That is my Kindle. She usually sits right here. But for now, I'm going to move her up here so that we can see all my other books. So the way that me and my best friend organized my bookshelf is basically by genre and by author. So this is my fiction. This is my YA. Down here, I have my nonfiction and self-care books with some historical fiction. On my third shelf, I have my romance. And on my fourth shelf, I have mystery, thriller, and my manga that I'm reading. And then I also have a bookshelf, a sliding bookshelf on my bed frame. And on that side, I have my fantasy books. So I'm going to show you everything. So we're going to be here for a little while. I'm also going to show you guys the books that I am currently reading. So let's start off with those books. I am reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue on my Kindle. I am reading Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I am actually reading this book because I am part of a book club from one of my favorite YouTubers, Kalila. If you're watching, I want to be friends. So far, I'm confused, but I like it. Yeah. The second book that I am reading is The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. I did read The Housemaid, so this is the second book in the series. Frida's pissing me off. It's taken me a while to finish this book. I'm on probably like page 60. She's getting me tight. But you know what? I'm gonna give her a chance because I like Frida. Frida's one of my friends, so we'll see. So now, let's go into my fiction. The first book I have is Americana by, I'm definitely going to butcher this name, by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I tried. I really tried. I'm also gonna mess up a lot of words, so be ready for that. But yeah, I have Americana. This one is called Tyler Johnson Was Here by J. Coles. A lot of the books in my library consist of books that I got from a bookstore called Book Off, where they have $1 deals. Some of them are from my best friend's library, and some of them are just some that I have bought that I have gotten for free. So it's just a mix of a lot of different books. This book was actually one of the books that I got from Book Off that was $1. So yeah, very excited to read it. Everything That Rises Must Converge by Flannery O'Connor. I know this book might trigger some people. A Little Life. Just gonna, let's see when I get to actually read those books. So now we're gonna get into my fiction. Starting with How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents by Julia Alvarez. On This Day by Melody Carlson. The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Juno Diaz. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Doll Palace by Sarah Lipman. Tell Me Lies by Carol Lovering. This book is so triggering for me. It literally was so annoying. This is one of those books where the show is so much better than the book, personally, to me. My Life with the Walter Boys by Ali Novak. I actually watched this show, and while I was watching the show, I was like, this has to be a book because it literally sounded so perfect, like as a book plot, and it definitely was a book. So I'm excited to read it. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And the last one on my fiction section is Luna by Julie Ann Peters. And that is all for my fiction section. So now we're going to get into my YA section. And the first book I have on my YA section is Girls on the Line by Jenny Liu. And this was also part of the books that I got for $1 at Book Off. And just reading it, I'm so excited to read these books. Am I Blue by Marion Dane Bauer. Different for Boys by Patrick Ness. So, fun fact about me, I am not a big fan of hardcover books. I'm simply not. And usually I take the dust jackets off. Sue me. Sue me. Cut the cameras. Okay, let me show you a perfect example of this. You see this cover? You see this book? Beautiful cover, right? Let me show you with the dust jacket. Hello? Hello? Yeah, nah. Sorry, dust jacket. Bye-bye. We'll move on. Next, I have Fault Line. Again, this had a dust jacket, and I took it off. Actually, when I got this book, it didn't have a dust jacket. But there's another book that I have just like this that I actually gave to my sister-in-law, and I took off the dust jacket. And I actually turned it into a collage because it was pissing me off. I'm just I'm just a chill girl. I'm just a chill girl. But this is Fault Line by C. Desert. It's a really good book. Then I have How Moon Fuentes Fell in Love with the Universe by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland. Then I have a classic, Looking for Alaska by John Green. My coworker actually told me to read this book, and now I'm obsessed. Also, I don't like this cover. I have another classic, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This is my favorite book. I read this book when I was in middle school. It was the first books that I actually read. I love this book. I freaking love this book. And then I got it for my birthday by my little cousin, and I was just ecstatic. Then I have A Song Only I Can Hear by Barry Johnsberg. Beautiful cover. Like, when I'm telling you beautiful cover, like, hold on. You guys have to see the spine. Sorry, that's upside down. Beautiful cover. I love it. I have Punching Bag by Rex Ogle. Another dust jacket that I'm probably taking off. Just saying. Oof. Oof. This book right here. Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Alire Sáenz. I read the first book, which is this book right here. It's Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I had to get the second book. And the second book came out this year. No, last year. And I got it for free. Okay. It's a hardcover. I'm already upset about that. But I had to get it. I had to get it. And I don't have the first book in my library. So I also had to get that. Because I read the first book from the library, the actual library. And so I had to give it back at some point. But I'm so excited. Then we have The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This is also a really nice cover. The letters on this book are like really nice. So this is a really nice cover too. And then finally, the last one on my YA section. They're Not Your Friends by Irene Zuttel. This is another one of those books that I had when I was in middle school, and I just had them. And I gave them to my little cousin, and she was like, I don't want to read this. And so she gave it back. And so now they're in my library, and hopefully one day I read them. So these are all my books for my fiction and my YA section. So now we're going to go into our second bookshelf. Guys, I'm getting old. This position for me, Wallen. Now we're gonna get into my self-care and my nonfiction and my historical fiction, and then we're gonna get into my romance. So let's start. So the first book is Representation in Sex Education by Tanya M. Bass. I am a sex ed teacher. Me and my coworker went to Philly to participate and attend the National Sex Ed Conference. And while we were there, a lot of keynote speakers. It was such a beautiful sex ed conference. I did record while I was there, so maybe I'll post it. Who knows? Who knows? So they gave us a lot of free books from a lot of the keynote speakers. This was actually one of the books. The second book I have is Outsmart Your Anxious Brain by David A. Carbonell. I actually took this out from the library, and it was a really good book. If you're looking for anything to help with anxiety, anxious feelings, intrusive thoughts, this book really helped me. I do know that a lot of people had mixed reviews on it because it does focus on a lot of specific anxiousness, not just generalized anxiety, but it was very good. The next one I have is called Everything Happens for a Reason by Kirschenbaum. I don't have the dust jacket, obviously. Duh. I read this in college. I don't think I finished it, but really good. The next one I have is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. One of my best friends actually has this book, and I told her to give me the book so that I can read it, but she hadn't finished reading it because she said that it was very difficult and very heavy to read. And so I was like, you know what? F you, I'm gonna buy it. Girl. And this is to my best friend. I haven't even opened the book. You knew what you were talking about. The next book is Empty Out the Negative by Joel Osteen. This book was so good. Let's just start off there, right? I also read this in college. Now, I'm not a big religious person. Maybe I dabble, but I'm not super like religious. Even if you're not a big religious person, this book is still pretty good. I swear by it, to be honest. I was a very negative person, a very negative Nancy. I am delivered. I am delivered. Please don't cancel me. Your girl's losing circulation. All right, let's continue. A Man Named Dave by Dave Peltzer. I actually tried to get rid of this book and they didn't allow me because it didn't have a barcode. But then I started reading it with my best friend and it's actually interesting. So, Be Not Afraid of Love by Mimi Zhu. I started reading it on my phone, gave up because again, it's very hard to read a self-care book when you have to become self-aware, you know? So that was the end of my self-care and nonfiction section of my library. So now we're gonna go into my historical fiction. The first one is In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez. I am Dominican. So I have a lot of Julia Alvarez. I have Juno Diaz. I've been looking for more Dominican authors because I feel like there's a lack of education when it comes to knowing Dominican authors or knowing any books about DR. I wanted to learn a little bit more. So, very excited for this book. Then I have Maud Martha by Gwendolyn Brooks. Then I have Girls Like Us by Randy Pink. This is my favorite book. I love this book. It is very loved. As you can see, it is very, very loved. Maybe I can do a video on my 5-star reads. Which ones were my 5-star reads? Which ones are the books that I recommend and don't recommend? Highly recommend. Like 10 out of 10 recommend. And lastly, definitely not least, I have The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. Guys, we are finally at my romance section. I have 3 more sections to go. I have my romance, my mystery and thriller, yeah, my manga, and my fantasy section. This is gonna be fast. This is gonna be quick.
Are you sure about that?
So let's move my little mushrooms that me and my boyfriend painted. Which one do you guys think is mine? Comment down below. And my sunnies, my sunny, and my one Smisky. I actually have more Smiskies in my bookshelf. I'm not Smisky deprived, and I have way more sunnies. They're just like all in one bag or another, like in some purse. So now let's get into my romance section. I'm gonna do this very quickly. Call It What You Want by Alyssa Derogatis. Sarah Dessen, Along for the Ride. The reason why I said it like that is because when I went to go buy books at the book off, I kept seeing this lady. I've never read any of her books, but I did see this Netflix show, which I hate that they did that. But anyways, but because I saw the show, I wanted to read the book because I was like, maybe the book is better. I learned my lesson with Tell Me Lies, but your girl don't learn. So that's my first Sarah Dessen book that I have in my library. The second Sarah Dessen book that I have in my library is What Happened to Goodbye. Also, hate that they did that. Why would you put the price on it? Don't piss me off. The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I also have Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Wildfire. I'm missing Daydream. I'll probably get that when summer comes. I really do like reading romance in the summer. Even if it's a winter romance, I don't know. I just feel like summer equals romance. I have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This was my first Abby Jimenez book. Have I read it? No. I also tried reading Happy Place. I took it out of the library, and the reason why I didn't finish it was because it was hardcover, number one. And number two, I had to give it back to the library. Then I have Love Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book and Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine are 2 recommendations that I got actually from my favorite YouTuber, and that's why I bought them. If I like you and you tell me to buy something, I will buy it. I'm not questioning it. I have the duology of If He Had Been With Me and If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nowlin. Nolan? Laura Nolan? These covers are amazing, and I'm glad I have these covers because I saw that some of the covers were changed, and I didn't like that. I have The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I actually started reading this book towards the end of summer, actually. And I only got to page 30. Also, look how cool this bookmark is from the Rip Bodice here in New York. Love it. In Brooklyn. I'm definitely gonna go again. My boyfriend only let me buy a couple of things. I'm excited to read this book. I could not get into it though when I was reading it, and that's when I noticed I can only read romance in the summer. Then I have One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and she ate. And lastly, I have The Town of Babylon by Alejandro Varela. I actually got this book at a queer bookstore in Philly where I went with my sister in law. I feel like I gotta tell you guys anecdotes every time I show you guys a book. First of all, my sunnies are being dragged. Those are my romance books. Now, we're gonna get into my mystery and thriller. Then I'll show you guys my manga. I have two other mangas in the other bookshelf, but it's standalone because I did not get the other books and I've been trying to get a certain book and I haven't been able to get it. So, I have the Komi Can't Communicate series by Tomohiro Oda. There is a show on Netflix and I tried watching the show and I could not get into the show. I don't know why, but the manga is great. It's cute. It's a very like feel good story. Let's see what percentage my phone is on. Don't piss me off. My phone is on 3%. Hold on. Okay, let's do this. The first book I have is From Bad to Curse by Katie Allender. I think this is from a series, but I'm not sure. This is also one of those books that I had when I was younger. Yeah, I don't know if this is a duology. I don't even know if this is the first book, but I will find out for us. The second book I have is The Cemetery of Untold Stories by Julia Alvarez, my girl, once again. Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. Don't Eat Me by Colin Cotterill. Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, or Gillian. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. This is ironic. I got this because of it's ironic. I promise. Verity by Colleen Hoover. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelis. The Silent Patient. I have the rest of The Housemaid, so I show you all The Housemaid's Secret. I have the novella, The Housemaid's Wedding, and I have The Housemaid's Watching. I know that Frida said we could read The Housemaid's Wedding either before The Housemaid's Watching or after. It doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to read it after The Housemaid's Secret. I have The Teacher by Frida McFadden, Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak, and The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This book was a book club book that me and my friends read, and the beginning was not what I thought was going to happen in the end. It was just, yeah. And those are all of my mystery and thriller books with my manga books. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. So that is my last shelf on my bookshelf. So now we're going to see the books on my bed frame. So come along. Come chill. Come hang out with me. This is my bed frame bookshelf. The lighting right now switched completely and I apologize for that. And the reason is because I had a whole makeshift thing over there. I have no lighting over here. I kind of turned on my LED lights, but I don't know if that made it worse or better. So now we are going to see my fantasy sci-fi books. These were the other two mangas that I have. I watched Soul Eater, but I wanted to get the book so I can read it. And this is Cherry Magic, 30 Years of Virginity Can Make You a Wizard. My best friend told me to read it and it was great. And I'm waiting for the second book and I cannot find it anywhere. So if you guys know where I can find it, let me know. So now let's start with my fantasies. We are gonna go from top to bottom because I'm not gonna be able to go through A to Z because they're upside down. So the first one is Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor by Ziron J. Shao. I got it from my boyfriend as well. He read it, he loved it, so I got one for me too. Then I have The Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I have Shadow Shaper by Daniel Jose Older. I saw at the book off that they had the other book. I don't know if it's a duology. I think it's a trilogy, but I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure. I have A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This baby girl is being given away. Sarah J. Maas, girl. Pew. A Magic Stepped in Poison. Oh shoot, I almost bought this book again because I thought it was the second book. By Judy I. Lin. My boyfriend got me this book. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I definitely want to get like the entire series. The story is so cute. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. The Leveler by Durango. I don't have the dust jacket for this one either. Julia Durango. My coworker actually got me this book. She was giving away books and like taking out books from her library, and so she gave me this book. I have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Lady Midnight from the Dark Artifices, the Shadowhunters novel, by Cassandra Clark. This is book one. This is also from my coworker. The second book I got from her was City of Bones by Cassandra Clark. Then I have Chime by Franny Billingsley. I have Half-Blood, my first Spade Edges book. It's purple. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's purple. It's called Half-Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And the last one that is not my book is Aesop's Fables. It's actually my boyfriend's book that I bought for him for Christmas. So that's my physical TBR. So some of my honorable mentions that I wanted to let y'all know is that I did have Song of Achilles, but it was my boyfriend's, and I read it and I gave it to my sister-in-law, so she's now reading it in Philly. I also gave her a copy of Aristotle and Dante. That is my physical TBR. I hope you all had a wonderful time hanging out with me. This is a long time brewing. This is not gonna be the first or the last video. Actually, this probably will be the first video. So I'm already lying to you guys, I'm sorry. But this will definitely not be the last video that you guys will see from me. I will try my hardest to be more consistent and actually take this seriously. I really do like books. I love talking about books. As you guys can see, when I tried to tell you I was gonna go fast and then I just kept talking about it. Hopefully I find a schedule and when I would like to post and how often I would like to post, but all those things would come with time. And so I'm just very happy that you guys came by and hung out with me in my little virtual library. I better see you back here again. I will shoot the 30. Love ya! Love ya, my lovelies! See you guys soon!